One of the message I usually share with a lot of women that I meet is that when you are making a decision of whether you want to continue working, stay at home, or be a mompreneur, at any point in time, you have to really know what it is that you want for your life stage. It's very easy to be influenced by what you hear around you, but ultimately you know yourself best. You know your own family, what works best.
Hi, welcome back to part 2 of our episode on why every mom needs unsexy role models with Sher-li Torrey from Moms at Work, a platform that empowers moms who have taken career breaks to return to work in Singapore. We left off the first part of our conversation talking about how Sher-li finds the true north at work, and we continue here today about personality tests and how you can use it to your advantage during life and career transitions. Listen in.
If someone going through career transitions, are there any frameworks or even personality tests that you lean toward?
I think I'm obliged to say this because I'm a trained MBTI profiler. I teach MBTI. I do like MBTI, but that's really about you knowing yourself and you understanding the people around you. But we're not just our personalities, right? A lot of times we act out of our personality because of the life stage we are in, the circumstances we are. But fundamentally, I think knowing your personality means that you know what makes you most comfortable. So I think in MBTI, for example, there's something called someone that is very much the big picture, the N part, the N not S, right? And S is more, I want to know the next steps. I want to see what's in front of me. When you have a better idea of your own personality type, you also know why you can get along with some people and why you cannot get along with some people, which then goes on to the next step of saying that I know now, because we are seeing this differently, me trying to push in that direction isn't going to change anything. So I use the example of big picture versus what's next, right? It's very important, even as a manager, for example, giving instructions. I'm an N, so I like to tell people, okay, the end goal is this. Somehow we'll get there, and then I have all these very indirect ways of explaining. But I realize that for my colleagues who are more S in their way of perceiving things, I then go into, I have to go step 1, step 2. We're going to achieve this is the deadline. By this stage, you should be able to see this. So for them, it's like a marker. They understand that, right? But they are also some of my colleagues are more like me and they go, okay, whatever. But I know they never read the instructions, right? But it's fine because I also trust them enough to know that if they are like me, they will get there. It's just that they will figure out. They have to figure it out. So I love MBTI because of this. Although people say it pigeonholes people, but I also sometimes share with people, but human beings are so complicated. So sometimes you don't want to get to know them because you want to manipulate them, but you want to get to know them so you know how to work with them in a way that's comfortable for them. So having that sort of rough gauge gives you an idea that, okay, I am not giving instructions, but I need to do it differently. Even though it's not innate to me, I know that it's not comfortable for the person receiving the instructions. So I try to find a way that's more comfortable for them. And I think when you realize that about personality or any kind of framework, you realize that it's not done in a way to judge people. It's done in a way to make communication with others better and easier for you to understand. Then you're actually surprisingly less judgmental.
Yeah, actually, it's so interesting. I recently did it like a few days ago. And I realized that I had changed, well, not the first two, because those are the dominant one, but the last two. And I was quite surprised by, I think, through my own journey of living overseas and being a mom and things like that. And I realized that it's actually been helpful in understanding how my managers, even my spouse, people on my team, right, like their personality type is, so I can suit. And thanks for sharing that. I think it's actually sort of somehow it seems to be more fluffy and given less of weight than it should, but I realize it's something that's very important as we talk about moms who are going back to work, wanting to go back to career, because they've also changed. I think it's important to reflect on that. So actually, I think this is a good segue to talk on this big group of members in your Moms at Work community of moms who are going back to work. And if you don't mind just sharing the segmentation of these members and what are the big questions you hear them ask?
Yeah, so we don't really segment them because I learned that women at different stages of life want different things. What we do is when they join us, and it's a free membership, right? Because it's a social enterprise. So when they join us, we ask them, what would you like to know more about? And you'll find it very interesting what they want to know about when they born, and maybe say 7 years later, it's different things. So I give you an example. They may be joining at a time where they are still a working mom and they're looking for flexible options to go into. That's when they will indicate flexible options. And then sometimes some of them will have stopped entirely because, like I mentioned, PSLE, for example, just stopped entirely for 2 years. And then when they are relooking the website and all again, they start looking more at coming back into a full-time role because the kids are older. So they get us this right and works a lot. But I always explain to them, our members, some of them have been with us for a long time. So rather than to say that they are always going to be a mother wanting to return to work or always a mother wanting to start a business, there's another group. A lot of them become mompreneurs, but after a few years of running the business, it's very tiring. They can run it for quite long, up to 8-10 years. And it's enough. I want to go back to work. So I start seeing them apply for the return to work, campaigns that we run. So, but basically these are the 3 segments. And I think it wouldn't be fair to say how many percent, right? Because employers love to ask me, how many exactly? And I said, but it depends on when you ask me. 2 years ago, it will be different because that maybe he's looking, she's a mompreneur. Or maybe 4 years ago, she was not a mompreneur, she was working, she looked sort of flexi work. But we've learned that some of our members really stay with us for a long time. So someone tell me, so I know there was a recent case, we had an event with Bonnie Lemon and his mom came up to me and I was in shock. She said, it's amazing. When I first joined you, I was working full time and then I switched to a flexi work role that was listed on your portal. I went to join it and I worked for them for 3 years. And then I stopped entirely because my kids were, they had the big exams. And so I took 3 years off and then get your return to work event. I came for it, that one fair, and then I found a job through that. So so she said, I really use all your different services. I said, okay, that's great. But again, this is an example of how it is, right? I remember how I mentioned the idea was this was going to be a problem solver. Like these are the different areas you can consider as a mom. Yeah. And I think this is why it's so interesting because all moms are the same at different stages of life. They really truly want different things. Someone who wants a lot of flexibility when the children are younger, I can honestly tell you when the children are 18 or 19, almost all will come back. A lot will turn and say, I don't mind doing more hours of work because there's no one at home. I can't stay at home all the time, So they switch again. And then I mentioned the mompreneurs, they are very successful with their businesses, but again, 8 years later, it's very tiring. You're constantly worrying about profit and loss. Forget it. I'm coming back to full-time work. So I think this is the interesting thing. And this is also why when the government asked me this one question of how can we attract women, I say, what stage are they at? What they want depends on what life stage they are at, what age they are at, right? Or what have they tried as well. So there are so many more questions than just a simple, at that point when you ask, that's their answer. 2 years later, 3 years later, all working moms will tell you the same. I cannot tell you that I'll work forever. I don't know. I try my best. But I know that if one day the children need me and there's no choice, I will stop work and take the 2 years off, right? Then I become a stay-at-home mom already, right? And then, so this is why this is so interesting. And this is actually around the world that there's no real clear pinpoint of time. And I think more so in Singapore, because of the national exams, we are uniquely, compared to the States or obviously we are counterparts, very similar organizations in the US and Australia and Europe and UK. We always talk about it. Sometimes I have meetings with them, we catch up, and then they will tell me online, they say, wow, your mothers are more mature because they take the breaks later. And I say, yes, because it's tied to PSLE. Children are 11, 12, around the age, that's when we take the break. Or children fall into primary 1, 7 or 8, we take the break. Because if you look at it, compared to a lot of other countries, our childcare system is quite supportive, And it's not expensive. In US, depending on the state, it can be horrendous. In Japan, it's like you don't have space, right? Queuing up for it. So you don't have a choice but to stop work, or the childcare is way more expensive than if you were to continue working. But Singapore, it's not like that. So that's why the government tells me, but we've done all these things, right? So why do the women still take breaks? And I say, it's your education system, because the fear is there. They either try to get some flexibility, or if they cannot, they will try to cut entirely and then come back in. So until the education system gets changed in some way, there will be a large percentage. And we knew this after quite soon, because I don't ask the age of the women. I always ask the age of the children. And it very rarely is a few months old or 1 year old or 2 year old. Very often it's 10, 11, 12 or 7, 6, 7. So, those are primary 1 and primary 6, you see. Yeah. So I think this is why we are quite unique compared to all the other markets. And it's also actually why it's more challenging, because women by then usually have quite significant responsibilities at work. They would have been supervising people already, or managing, or they have more responsibilities. So when they step out, or they change into a slightly less ambitious role, so-called, right, they will get penalized something, right? Either they're not promoted, or if they step out entirely, they struggle to come back in. The only other country that's quite similar to us is Hong Kong. But Hong Kong is not so much tied to when the children are going into exam, yeah. For them, it's usually the parents want to spend time with the kids, because the amount of work is quite intense, and then they say, I want to enjoy the kids when they're young. So they can tend to be a bit still younger within the elementary school, each primary school. But it's not like US, UK, or Japan. Very clearly, over 6 years is when the mom steps out. And if you look at the ages of the moms, they tend to be slightly younger, right? Yeah, because it makes sense, right? So,
well, that's really insightful, and thanks for sort of giving that bird's eye view of, comparing a little bit of the landscape of when people actually take a break out of their careers as moms. I actually feel pretty surprised, but then thinking about it, it does make a lot of sense because yes. I guess because I have young kids, people do want to be around for their younger years. But what I've also heard from other people where like actually it's more of when they're in their primary school, you might need to take more time off because they are around in the afternoons.
Yes, and the working moms really feel it from the children. You would think that in primary schools it shouldn't be, right? But they are around in the afternoons. The schools will contact you when the homework's not done. Okay, it's always about the magic of primary school WhatsApp chat groups. It's scary, you know. It can go off non-stop with a lot of queries and teachers are contacting you. It's a whole different world. Once primary school starts, and I never thought it would happen to me. I was quite confident. And when it came in, I thought, whoa, wow. It happened every time. I think it's not going to happen to me. It does. You know, like when PSLE came around, I said, it won't happen to me. I won't be caught up in all the WhatsApp chat. But it came. So my point is that I think that's where, remember what I said, the pressure comes. The pressure doesn't just come from the fact that the work is tough or, the kids need you. But you start to see that, hey, I don't know when my kids are having a test. They're clueless. My kids come back. Later on, she calls me and says, well, he hasn't done his homework for the last 3 days, for example. And I see this to this very day on my son, as he was in primary 1 and all that. I saw that on the WhatsApp chat group. Some of the parents are really clueless about it. And you can see that, you can almost see it and tell it just from their responses. And then after a while, you can tell, okay, some may just stop work entirely. So it's a combination of factors. It's not about the situation. It's just sometimes the mom decides that this is for the good of my child. I want to do this. And then there are also others who start to realize that the primary school years are actually quite formative years. Is when the bonds are really built as well, right? So you have cases like that as well where the parents are a bit older, they realize it, they recognize that it's the best age to be with their kids, so they will step up as well. So I think the situation is different, but on a broader level, you see how the national education system and all that impact on when the parents feel the stress.
Yes. Wow, thanks so much. I know that you all are also going to new markets, right?
Yeah.
Japan and is that Hong Kong?
We've been in Hong Kong, for some time now. Then Japan, it's very new to us. And Japan is, wow, it's really tough. But I think it's interesting because I really took it on partly because we had clients who wanted very much to go into the market and they came to us, corporates or companies, and they said, could you partner us? And we said, who would do it? But it's mind-boggling because it's really where structurally there is no support. And I mean that because if you look at Singapore, childcare is affordable. The nature of our country is small. So even if you didn't want to trust childcare, you obviously have grandparents who are nearby. They're not too far away, right? I mean, I know moms will complain, I drive 1 hour to my mom's place, but you think about it, you're like, wow, in the US, it's a different state, right? You don't see them except for Christmas and once or twice a year. And in Japan, it's the same. So that's a problem they face. They really don't have a caregiver, right? On top of that, they have very odd insurance systems where basically a woman gets paid pretty much there's some penalty to her working. It's better for her, for health insurance, for her to be a dependent of her husband rather than to be sole pay. So when you start to see this, you realize the Singapore government has done pretty amazing work in this area. When I travel for work and I meet with a lot of organizations that do work in this space, they will always tell me your policies as a country, they've done their best. And I mean, even PSI, they always say this, the national exams are there, the primary school exams, the school stress is there. A lot of this is for the parents choosing, the moms and dads realizing this is what I prefer. It isn't someone that's tied your hands behind your back and there's no other support system, right? Yeah. And of course, having helpers, that's a huge one. It's talked about so much in Japan, it's talked about so much and that's why Hong Kong was very similar to us. When we first went into the market, it was interesting because it was so much about choice. They were choosing to, because of the very fast pace of life, and they felt they're missing out on the children's development. Did they have the option for grandparents? Yes. Did they have up to the childcare? Childcare, not so much, but helpers, domestic helpers, all this huge. So I think it's fascinating because when I am talking to US counterparts or UK counterparts, they have no idea what I'm saying. And I share all these things and they go, oh my God, we need this, right? But this is nationwide and it's so hard to implement in the States, right? So I think this is why it's very interesting. And I always say Singapore is in that sense a role model of how, as much as possible, the environment is built for them.
Very interesting. And I think you've given me a lot of food for thought and encouragement.
Yes.
Because everything is sort of relative and you compare and you realize that actually, no one's perfect, right? There's no one perfect system.
No. And that's why it was so good for us to work with different markets, because I have colleagues and partners who will complain to me, Singapore government doesn't do enough. But when we really start to look at other markets, they keep quiet and they go, oh my gosh, actually a lot has been done. And I said, yes, a lot has been done. And they're pretty forward-thinking policies. I mean, I'm not always pro-government. Like, I wish the PSLE system would be abolished. But there are things where you can see the thought process of how, as much as possible, we try to create that. And it's interesting, we had discussed this before I came on the show about, in Singapore, why is it that women working is so much an identity that you kind of feel like if I became a mom, I should continue working. It is true, it is slanted a little bit to that angle, I would say. But I think it's really because if I look at it from very big picture, our country doesn't really have any draw factor, right? We don't have a lot of things. So again, you max out your manpower as much as possible. You see what I'm saying, right? Whereas in US, it's a mixture of things. It's not just manpower. And obviously, US is very much more complicated because of the politics and the policies and all that involved. But I use another country like India, for example. We recently had to partner somebody for a project in India as well. And manpower wasn't the issue anymore. It was other things. So the policies, again, don't support. They don't see a need for it. It's just, okay, just give up and stay at home, please, And then they have an added level, which I heard later on from some of my friends. It's quite common. The mother-in-law is the issue for a lot of women, right? But it's not like that in Singapore. So even socially, culturally, you have your odd few cases, but general environment allows for women to choose. And I think that's a beautiful thing, right? If you see all these other markets and you see it for what it is, you realize in name, some of these markets say, we give you the freedom of choice. But the freedom of choice is limited if the structural things are not there, right? So I want to choose, I want to continue working, but I have no childcare in my city. It just won't work, right? So I think that's why it's really interesting. And part of the reason why I agree to take on Japan too, because this will be the real challenge. Because Singapore, though challenging, we had the ecosystem very supportive. Japan, the ecosystem is trying to be supportive, but they're doing nothing about it. So you kind of stuck there, and there's cultural innuendos and all that.
Well, thank you so much, Sher-li, for bringing what you've done in Singapore. I'm sure a lot of it is your own learning, and also I'm sure the work that you've done has shaped company policies, if not even certain national policies in some small ways, since they do have these consultative sessions with you, and bringing it to other places to have mutual learning. Yeah, as we close out here, Sher-li, would love to have you share one message from your learnings of the moms that you serve. What do you want to bring to our listeners? Yeah, and I'm thinking about something you spoke to me earlier about the happiest mothers you've observed. You can speak to that.
Yeah. So I think one of the message I usually share with a lot of women that I meet is that when you are making a decision of whether you want to continue working, stay at home, or be a mompreneur at any point in time, I think you have to really know what it is that you want for your life stage. It's very easy to be influenced by what you hear around you, right? But ultimately, you know yourself best. You know your own family best as well, what works best. And I also often say this, nothing lasts forever. So what I mean by that, if, for example, you feel like, oh, you're trapped at being a stay-at-home mom, you're trapped at being a working mom, it doesn't last this way forever. The children do grow up and the circumstances keep changing. So rather than be more caught up in that whole sense of hope and stuff, think of it as it's temporary. There may be something else that's like change along the way. And it's not about what other people say. It's not about whether you judge me as whether I'm a good mom. In my opinion, whether you are stay-at-home mom, working mom, flexi work mom, mompreneur, don't want to do anything mom also can. But at the end of the day, you're doing the best that you can as a mother, right? So you cannot let other people shape your identity as a mother, as a woman. And I think that's where it's very important to think through exactly what it is that you want, think through exactly what your current situation needs from you. And I repeat again, the needs aren't forever. The children will grow up at some point where they really don't need you around as much as you want to be around, right? So the question then becomes, at that point in your life, what is it that you want? What is it that you need? Is it about forming that bond with the children? Is it about having that bond to a certain extent, but also having a different identity outside of caregiving? These are questions you have to ask yourself first, right? And I always find that women like to talk about it, ask a lot of opinions. It's great, but sometimes you get shaped too. You hear what other people go through, you think, oh, I want to be like that too. But we don't need to be like that. You know what works best for you. One of the things I hate getting asked, which I'll be honest about, is, do you think women have it all? I hate that question, to be honest, because to me,
I don't have it.
yeah, and it's a really unpleasant question because I think none of us have it all. Depending on male, female, young, you don't, right? And the better question then is ask yourself, at this point in my life, are all the different areas in my life balanced in the way I want it? Again, your own definition. Maybe at that time I'm spending more time with my children. At that point I'm spending more time at work. At that time I'm spending more time with my parents. It doesn't matter. You'll know best and you have to make peace with that. Because if you don't make peace with it, you will never have it all. And with all is that meaning. And more importantly, you're always constantly searching, right? For that elusive myself moment. I don't think it works, right? So know where you are at, ask yourself the questions, what can I shift to adjust such that I feel more balanced? I feel like I'm touching base with all the areas of my life. And not keep thinking, how does she do it? How does she do it? It doesn't matter, it's you. Could be your spouse, your work situation, your boss, right? Your colleagues. So it's just what you are. You deal with that and you work with that in that situation.
Thanks, Sher-li. Yeah, another way that I've heard it put is also that these trade-offs might be difficult on the onset as you think about it, but it's actually a kind of function that lets you decide and make decisions to see how you show up in the world or who you are. It really reveals your values. And so,
which is a very hard question to answer when you think about it. I think that becoming a mom, one of the challenges, I'll just add this, is you finally have a mirror in front of you and you have to deal with your own strengths and your weaknesses and the things that you sometimes don't want to think about, right? All your life. Sometimes growing up, no matter how strong and amazing we are as people, there are things that you manage to dodge because it's a painful topic for you, right? But when you become a caregiver and you have more responsibilities, that's when you say, now I have a chance, right, to think about it. And I think I shared this before as well. I said, motherhood is there for really a chance for you to decide how much of a better person you want to be. You can always choose to just stay, right? But the question then becomes, is this what it is? Or do you then want to relook some of your values that maybe worked for you before, but really not now? Or have you forgotten a very good value that you always cherished that now you're forced to settle again? So it's this mirror that really reflects back on you, whether it's parenting, whether it's making the work decision.
Yes. Oh, big yes. Well, thank you, Sher-li.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to Make It Work, where we uncover inspiring stories of modern working mamas in Asia who have redefined their careers whilst putting family first. Please help others discover the show by leaving a review and rating on wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and TikTok. Meanwhile, here's to you, making it work.